If anything kills over 10 million people in the next few decades, it's most likely to be a highly infectious virus rather than a war. Not missiles, but microbes.
Bill Gates, aka the philanthropist devil. Who is he and what's his role in the final stage? If you ask the general public, they'll say the owner of Microsoft, and specialists will define him as the man of the 21st century. But those who know the truth of the matter will remain silent. How can a young man establish the largest software company in the world? And who's the invisible man behind his big success? And the strangest question of all, how did he give up his kingdom so easily? In this episode, we'll highlight some secret files and reveal some facts that will be presented for the first time, beginning from the empire of Microsoft to the golden number. Let's tell you the full story of Mr. William Henry Gates, the story of the hidden hand of the final stage. It's October 28, 1955, in one of Seattle's neighborhoods, Washington, USA. William, known as Bill, was born to American parents, and he holds the fourth title in his family. But his father relinquished his title to him, and William became known in the Hidden Empire as Bill III. It's believed that his family roots go back to the ancient establishment of Scotland, as all his ancestors held high royal and political positions from the era of the British Kingdom down to the American Empire. Bill attended Lakeside Preparatory School, where he was proficient in mathematics and science. In 1967, something happened that made a fundamental difference in his life, when the school acquired a computer for the first time, which was considered a magical machine that captured the hearts of students at the time. Among them is the 13-year-old Bill, who spent most of his time in the computer room busy writing programs and applications, to the point that he neglected his duties and sometimes forgot about his life. Until he met his friend of success, Paul Allen, who would later play a prominent role in the upcoming events. That year, a local company called Computer Center emerged to provide students with more skills and time to interact with computers, which were operated by PDP-10 operating system at the time. Both Bill and Paul were able to break the system protection and modify it, and then they made an offer to the company to fill the system gaps and develop it with two other colleagues. The company agreed and decided to give them this opportunity, and so the four students formed a group they called Lakeside Programmers. This opportunity allowed them to study system programs and gain extensive experience in programming languages, and it formed the first main nucleus in Bill Gates' empire. A few years later, in high school, a strong friendship developed between Bill and Paul, both of whom had the same orientation and ideas. But Paul was superior to Bill in intelligence and experience, so Bill took advantage of this and established with his friend a small private company they called Traf-O Data, which achieved in the first year $20,000 of profits. In 1973, Bill entered Harvard University, but in that year something happened that changed his life forever. While Paul was on his way to visit Bill, he stopped in front of a small store and saw on the cover of Popular Electronics magazine a picture of the Altair 8800 computer, which was the first commercial microcomputer. So Paul bought the magazine and rushed to see Bill, and the two quickly realized that this computer carried with it the great opportunity they had dreamed of. A few days later, Bill contacted MITS, the company that produces the Altair computer, and told them that he and his colleague Paul had developed a special computer system written in basic programming language. And this was the big lie, as he's used to circumventing in order to reach his goals. The truth is that when Bill and Paul told the company that they owned a system for this computer, they hadn't written a single line of software for it. However, he was able to deceive the company that agreed to meet them and test the new system, and in just 8 weeks they wrote an integrated software system. In 1975, Paul went to MITS to display the operating system, which achieved great success and without any errors, so Bill left Harvard University and moved to work with Paul in software development. He realized that the future lies in the software market, and then the first step towards the Microsoft empire began. Later that year, Bill and Paul set up a private company to develop software and operating systems, which they called Microsoft, where Bill owned 60% of the company's shares, while Paul got the remaining 40%, and the reason for that was that Bill devoted himself to managing the entire company, while Paul was still an employee at MITS. After 1 year, the company was legally registered, and their profits in the first year amounted to $105,000. Not only was Bill Gates a software hobbyist, but he was a cunning person who knew very well how deals were managed and moved things in his favor. In 1980, the global IBM company started a huge project known as the Manhattan Project to manufacture a personal computer, known as the IBM computer. In order to write success for this computer, it must include an operating system, so the company asked for help of the genius Bill Gates. Bill felt at the time that there was a great opportunity to achieve revolution and global domination, which might make him the most famous and richest man in the world. So, with his friend Paul, he bought the full rights to the ready-made operating system, QDOS, which was invented by Tim Patterson for only $50,000. At the time, Microsoft didn't announce to Seattle Computer Products, which owns the rights to the system, the real reason for the purchase, because that would have doubled the selling price 20-fold. At the same time, Bill agreed with IBM that Microsoft be the exclusive provider of operating systems for all IBM PCs. In other words, IBM is prohibited from contracting with any other software company in order to purchase operating systems for its products. On the other hand, Microsoft has the right to retain full rights to develop and sell its operating system to other individuals or companies. It was a very cunning game by Bill Gates, who took advantage of the company's need for operating systems in order to dominate the software market. After a short period of time, Microsoft put a version of the operating system on the market with a new name, MS-DOS, in 1981, which made it an attractive system and available to all companies and individuals. Bill Gates' stated campaign was to end the software monopoly, but through that he aimed to build a huge base of Microsoft products users. Thus, he becomes the main provider for all users in America and the world, and this is what happened literally. 1 year after the start of Microsoft's influence, Paul mysteriously submitted his resignation from the company, and it was said at the time that he had Hodgkin's disease, which is a type of cancer. and Paul's name disappeared from the company forever, and Bill became the only emperor of the software market in the world. A few months after this incident, the hatred for Bill increased dramatically in the American society, especially after the issues of monopoly and greed, which he practiced against individuals and companies. In the midst of his euphoria from his sweeping success, he encountered a giant he had never expected, which is Apple, which was founded by Steve Jobs, an American of Syrian origin. He was the first to introduce a computer with a graphical interface known as Macintosh, as it was then a technological revolution in the era of the 80s, and it was just around the corner from overthrowing Microsoft. Bill felt at the time the seriousness of the situation, so he contacted Steve Jobs asking him for a license of the graphical interface idea. So Steve agreed to grant him the external license only without the content. In 1985, Microsoft introduced a new system called Windows, in which it used graphical user interface, which was inspired by Xerox system in addition to some parts of the interface in Apple system. The company then made another development to help move between files and windows, now known as the mouse. But the first system failed to confront the ideas of Steve Jobs, so they launched a new version called Windows 2, and this time it was a literal theft of the ideas and content of the Macintosh system. In 1988, Steve Jobs filed a lawsuit against Microsoft accusing it of stealing some elements of the graphical application interface of the Macintosh computer and using them in the Windows 2 operating system. After a long debate in the case, his company was asked to provide a specific list of the stolen elements, and the company submitted a list of 189 elements, which is enough to withdraw Windows from the market and close the company. After a long study of this list, the court ruled that 179 of these elements are entitled to be reused by Microsoft based on the agreement concluded between the two companies in 1985, and the case was closed to the astonishment of local and global opinion. And so, Microsoft, with its leader Bill, took a great step on shoulders of the genius and real inventor of graphical interface systems, Steve Jobs. 10 years after this incident, specifically on May 18, 1998, the U.S. Department of Justice and 20 other states filed civil cases against Microsoft, accusing it of monopolizing the software market and integrating its internet browser with the operating system. The court ruled this time against Bill Gates, but this ruling was nothing but a mere obfuscation of what happened in 1988 with Apple. Yet Microsoft continued year after year to issue successful copies of Windows operating system until it got to Windows 11 today. And the company has become the global monopolist of operating systems in the world, despite the rise of Apple systems known as iOS and Linux systems.